X-Men the Animated Series from the 90s has such a legacy that I think it deserves to be among the top 3 superhero cartoons of all time. However, it'd been so long after the show that I'd given up all hopes of a sequel to continue the story. It came as such a pleasant surprise when X-Men 97 was announced as a direct continuation of the classic 90s series, and to the delight of the fans, the story picked up just after the events of the finale. It was the same heartfelt story of mutants fighting in a world that hates and fears them, and from bigger conspiracies to action-packed showdowns, X-Men offered it all. Now, we're only a few days away from the release of the much-awaited Season 2, and I thought now might be a good time to take you on a quick recap run to brush up on everything you need to know to enjoy this upcoming season. I think it's important to remember some of the crucial events that we've seen unfolding in the 90s series before I explain the details of Season 1 of X-Men 97. For instance, one of the biggest events that marked the end of the original series was that Charles Xavier was gone. It all happened after a mutant hater named Henry Gyrick attacked Xavier in public with a device that could overload his psychic powers. This also exposed his mutant identity, leading to a mass anti-mutant hysteria among humans. With their leader in a coma, the X-Men decided that they needed to summon help from Lilandra, Xavier's lover and the Empress of the Shi'ar Empire. They got help from Magneto, who gave up his fight against humanity to save his old friend. It was an emotional goodbye as the team had to bid farewell to their mentor, and this is exactly where X-Men 97 picked up. Cyclops was in charge of the X-Men and Xavier was gone, but a crisis was never too far for the X-Men, is it? The first episode of X-Men 97 is titled To Me, My X-Men, and here things start off with the X-Men continuing their mission to defend mutants and humans alike, even after it's been a year since Xavier left Earth. Also, Jean Grey is pregnant, and the other team members are by her side in these changing times. One day, the X-Men save a young mutant named Roberto da Costa from the Friends of Humanity, and they discover that these mutant haters have access to Sentinel tech. While probing the mind of Henry Peter Gyrick to find information about the Sentinel creator Bolivar Trask, she has a horrible premonition. But nevertheless, the X-Men track down Bolivar Trask to a junkyard in the Sahara, where he's rebuilding the Sentinels with help from a lobotomized Master Mold. He's apprehended and the Sentinels are defeated, and even the Master Mold supercomputer is destroyed. It seems like a job well done, but there's a lot that the X-Men will have to deal with in the times to come. As of now, Cyclops and Jean Grey decide to leave the team so that they can raise their son away from mutant hatred. I love the climactic twist in the episode where Magneto makes a surprise entry and announces that Xavier gave him control of the X-Men and Xavier's School for Mutants in his last will. He intends to follow up with that, even though some of the X-Men are still untrusting of him. The second episode, called Mutant Liberation Begins, reveals that Magneto has indeed turned a new leaf as he tries his best to live up to the legacy and philosophy of Charles Xavier. He saves both humans and mutants, and he refuses to kill the anti-mutant militants that he would have slaughtered before without batting an eyelid. But Cyclops and Jean Grey still remain distrustful of him, while Rogue is more sympathetic toward him, even hinting at a past relationship between them. Then comes a major twist that changes things for the team. The UN forces, led by Valerie Cooper, arrive at the X-Mansion to arrest Magneto for his past acts of terrorism. He surrenders peacefully in order to gain the trust of the X-Men and humanity, but his trial at the UN headquarters goes horribly wrong. The Friends of Humanity stage an attack, and their leader, Executioner, fires a depowering radiation blast at Magneto. Storm takes the hit and loses her powers in the process. Meanwhile, Magneto is able to stop the attack and is granted a pardon by the UN as they discuss the possibility of inducting the mutant nation Genosha into the Union. On the other hand, Jean goes into labor, and when the doctor refuses to deliver a mutant baby, Rogue is forced to absorb the knowledge of an obstetrician. Eventually, Jean gives birth to a son who they name Nathan. Storm leaves the group in order to find new meaning in her life, and I think the biggest twist comes with the final scene, where the X-Men are surprised by a visit from a woman who looks just like Jean Grey. This mystery is resolved in the third episode titled Fire Made Fresh, when Beast determines that the Jean Grey lookalike who arrived is actually the real Jean Grey. The one who's been with them all this time is a clone created by Mr. Sinister, who created her to gain access to Cyclops' DNA. To make matters worse, she transforms into the Goblin Queen and takes Nathan with her, while subjecting the X-Men to horrific visions. Luckily, the real Jean Grey awakens and confronts her clone telepathically, and the Goblin Queen snaps out of Sinister's control. But by then, Nathan has been infected with a techno-organic virus and is left seriously ill. Mr. Sinister escapes, but the X-Men realize that Nathan cannot be saved by what they have available here. The clone Jean decides to send him with a time-traveling bishop so that he can find a cure for this in the future. She also also has a complete change of heart and takes the name Madeline Pryor before leaving the team. I think this is a wonderful balance between the comic book lore and the show. This episode ends with a mutant named Forge who introduces himself to Storm and claims that he can restore her lost power. Next up, we have the episode titled Montendo Life Death, where a unique villain called Mojo is introduced. It starts off with Jubilee wanting to celebrate her 18th birthday at the arcade. However, Magneto refuses the celebration demands and wants to focus on training. As Roberto tries to console a dejected Jubilee, she is surprised to find a new Montendo video game console in her room. They start playing the video game and get pulled inside, and it turns out to be a ploy of the alien slave master Mojo, who feeds off such audience engagement. But Jubilee has an unexpected helping hand as an older digital copy of herself from the beta version of the game comes to her aid. She's almost too busy enjoying the experiences of her past missions in this digital world. Her own digital self convinces her that she would be leading an empty life. She helps them, Jubilee and Roberto, defeat Mojo in the virtual world before they can return to the real world, and they even seal the deal with a kiss. As for Forge and Storm, the situation's not so adorable after she finds out that even though Forge is attempting to restore her power now, he's the one who invented Executioner's depowering weapon in the first place. As she leaves in anger, a strange owl that's actually a demon called Adversary brings her back to Forge and has him poisoned. I think the next episode, titled Remember It, is one of the most emotional episodes that expose the complexities and vulnerabilities that the X-Men deal with. For instance, Jean Grey is confused between her memories, and she can't really tell which ones belong to her and which one is from Madeline. She tries to share this with Wolverine and even kisses him, but sparks don't fly because Wolverine advises her to speak to Cyclops. But Jean also finds out that Cyclops is telepathically in touch with Madeline even though she's gone. Away from this romantic drama, Rogue and Gambit travel with Magneto to the mutant nation of Genosha. The Genoshan Council asks Magneto to lead the country, and he agrees to the proposition only if Rogue leads with him. Even Rogue is confused, and she reveals to Gambit about her past relationship with Magneto. However, after kissing Magneto at the celebratory party, she realizes that she really wants Gambit in her life. She turns down Magneto's proposal, but there are bigger concerns now. Cable arrives, time traveling from the future to warn them about an impending attack, but is transported back before he can do so. The next part offers the biggest twist, as the Sentinels and Master Mold in a massive new body attack Genosha. This causes massive death and destruction, and Magneto seemingly sacrifices himself to save the mutants. Gambit falls while protecting Rogue, but he takes out the Master Mold in the process. Basically, the X-Men are left in a state of shock, struggling with their own emotions already, and now combined with the losses that haunt them. Well, you can't keep Charles Xavier away from the action for too long, especially after he's healed completely in the Shi'ar Empire. In the next episode, Lilandra announces their engagement, but her brother Deathbird invokes the rite of Madasha, where Xavier must give up his memories of Earth. He refuses to do so, but when he learns about the death of Gambit, he decides that he must go back to Earth. Meanwhile, Forge is able to cast the demon out with his mother's spellbook, and Storm helps him heal from the earlier poisoning by finding a rare cactus. She gains her powers back in the process and even defeats the demon Adversary. But I would say that the most shocking part of the episode is saved for last, when Trask is shown to be confronted by Mr. Sinister. He warns him that Genosha was only the beginning, and clearly greater horrors lied ahead for them. It's only in the next episode, titled Bright Eyes, that a bigger conspiracy is revealed. After Gyrick is murdered and Trask panics, the X-Men find out that Sinister and a secret division of the United Nations is developing a highly advanced Sentinel program. When Rogue drops Trask to his death in a fit of rage, she unknowingly activates a program in him that turns him into a human Sentinel hybrid. Cable makes another entry and defeats this hybrid version of Trask. He also informs them about a greater threat, which turns out to be Bastion. Another shocking revelation comes when it's learned that Magneto, who was presumed dead earlier, is now a prisoner of Bastion. This all boils down for the nail-biting three-part climax called Tolerance is Extinction. I think it's fair to say that this entire story arc is what made the first season all the more memorable. Firstly, Tolerance is Extinction starts with a bang, as we get some major insights into what's going on. Cable tells the X-Men that in his timeline, the mutants are endangered following the Prime Sentinel program in the aftermath of the Genosha massacre. Meanwhile, the situation gets worse as more and more humans reveal their Sentinel genes. However, Cooper, who was only initially part of Operation Zero Tolerance to fund the Sentinel program, realizes that Bastion has gone too far. She releases Magneto just in time, and he travels to the North Pole and activates a massive magnetic field to shut down all the Sentinels. Earlier, among other major events, the X-Mansion is burned down, as Wolverine and Nightcrawler barely manage to protect an unconscious Rogue. Nevertheless, after the act of Magneto, Xavier returns to Earth and he summons the X-Men like old time. But now, they have a more challenging task at hand. They have to stop Bastion and also convince Magneto to reverse the blackout that he's caused. Meanwhile, Magneto reestablishes the mutant haven on Astro asteroid M, and he chooses to leave Earth. He's no longer keen on listening to Xavier's words of peaceful coexistence. Rogue and Roberto join him, but the others return to their former base on Muir Island to regroup. The team splits into two. One team is led by Cyclops, and this one heads to asteroid M to confront Magneto. The other team is led by Storm and Jean Grey and go for Bastion's hideout at the Galapagos Islands. They fight Sinister and an army of Sentinels powered by Bastion, and a desperate Jean sends a psychic message to Cyclops. Meanwhile, on asteroid M, Xavier tries to take control of Magneto's mind, but he's blocked. After Wolverine tries to attack Magneto, he rips the adamantium from his skeleton, and I think this might be one of the most shocking moments in the series so far. In the final part of the narrative, Xavier is able to make use of his telepathic powers to override Magneto's mind, but this also means that the Prime Sentinels on Earth are reactivated. Jean uses her Phoenix Force powers to stop Bastion from executing Cable, and she finally places the depowering collar on Bastion, which immediately deactivates the Sentinels. She also takes away the powers of Sinister, and finally the Phoenix Force disappears. But Bastion is still able to rip off the cybernetic arm of Cable, and he flies away toward asteroid M. It's a chaotic climax as the US military launches a missile toward asteroid M, and all the X-Men are here trying to stop Bastion while Xavier tries to contain Magneto. The missile kills Bastion, but now the asteroid starts to fall back to Earth, and the X-Men use their combined powers to prevent the crash on the East Coast. Magneto gains consciousness just in time for him to send the asteroid back to space before it explodes, and it seems like all of them, including the X-Men, are gone in the process. However, there's a little twist that sets up the second season perfect. 6 months following this event, Bishop visits Forge and tells him that the X-Men are trapped in various timelines. Cyclops and Jean are in 3960 AD in a future timeline, where they encounter Mother Ascani and a child Nathan. On the other hand, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, Xavier, and Magneto have ended up in ancient Egypt in 3000 BC, where they meet in Sabah Nur. Also, I can't get over the memorable mid-credits scene where Apocalypse finds one of Gambit's playing cards in the ruins of Genosha, hinting at the Horsemen of Apocalypse narrative. So, as you can see, the crisis has only worsened for the X-Men, and from the trailer of Season 2, it's quite clear that they have deadlier villains to deal with this time around. From Apocalypse to Kang the Conqueror, the X-Men will have to go across timelines to safeguard both human and mutant interests, and I'm expecting another iconic run for the show. Let me know in the comments below what you expect from Season 2, and let me know which storyline you're the most excited to follow. If you appreciate our efforts to make and bring you content like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to ring that bell notification so that you don't miss any future videos from us. Be safe, have a great day, and as always, stay marvelous.